long overdue. I'm grateful to be able to have technology and be able to use tools like this in the midst of you all's crazy schedules. I want to start by saying thank you. You all have hung in the balances without all the pieces put together, all the information. You ladies have been so faithful. And so I want to personally say thank you before I get into the purpose of this meeting. I want to address your question. You asked what is the scope, the roles, expectations of the event team ministry. And so that is the purpose of our time. You can actually use this video orientation for new members who decide they want to be a part of the event team. So I want to start by reviewing what the overall mission of all serving teams are. You should be familiar with this. It is to help more people meet God. You all should be able to finish it by now. Help more people meet God by showing more people how to serve God. But the event team is uniquely positioned to achieve that mission by doing three things. One is high quality event planning. We said it in our leadership retreat. We want people to be in awe of God by the way we serve, by the systems behind our service, by the order and the flow in which we serve. And I am excited about what God is doing and laying a foundation to make that dream a reality, but to also get to a place where we have more people than we have places to put them. There's no reason why we shouldn't have an abundance of individuals ready and willing to serve. So as I said, high quality event planning, first class customer service. We want people coming from the outside to ask Zion about their service process and how they can use it even in the secular industry. We also want to manage the event environment in a way that causes unbelievers to experience God. We want them to feel welcome. We want them to feel comfortable. And more than anything, we want them to feel the love of God. And so the event team has three primary functions, even based on your description. It's planning, it's people, and it's production. Planning, people, and production. Planning is all about developing and operating a systemic plan for successful events. I want to highlight an example of that out of Nehemiah chapter 4. Nehemiah has the audacious task of rebuilding the broken walls of Jerusalem. It's way too big, much like some of the events that you all have managed. They're huge. And the question is how, given our limited resources, given the people that we have to work with, how on earth would we pull this off? And in Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 10, the people of Judah will feel very much like the people that you and I are called to lead. Then the people, says in verse 10, then the people of Judah began to complain. The workers are getting tired, and there is so much rubble to be moved. We will never be able to build the wall by ourselves. And meanwhile, our enemies were saying, before they know what's happening, we will swoop down on them and kill them and end their work. The Jews who lived near the enemy came and told us again and again, they will come from all directions and attack us. So I placed, this is Nehemiah talking, so I placed armed guards behind the lowest parts of the wall in the exposed areas. I stationed the people to stand guard by families, armed with swords, spears, and bows. Then I looked over the situation and called together the nobles and the rest of the people and said to them, don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord who is great and glorious. Fight for your brothers, sons, daughters, wives, and your homes. This is an encouraging passage because what motivated Nehemiah to look beyond the threats of the enemy was the people that he was called to reach, called to protect, called to provide a safe haven for. And what's awesome is they didn't just pray. He had someone systemically put together a plan in which they covered the exposed areas. They strategically put people to cover the lowest parts of the wall. And then each group did their section, section by section, section by section. They built the wall. And before they knew it, they restored the broken walls of Jerusalem. That is a system. Sometimes we just say, hey, we're going to pray and trust God. But he prayed and then he planned. And so when I talk about planning, we're talking about using systems, strategic systems, to accomplish a successful event. The second primary function of your team, people. We want to ensure the facilitation of an event that's done in such a way that people sense their value. We want people to walk in our doors and feel like God knows them, God loves them, God cares for them, and God has been looking for them. The last primary function is production. Produce an event that contributes to an experience or an encounter with God. So again, planning, people, and production. I want to give you some keys to the success of the event team. We want to lead through strengths. We want clear division of labor, as we saw in Nehemiah chapter 4. It's important to make sure that we have good division of labor so no one person is doing too much. And we want to use, again, a consistent system template. For further clarity on team roles, expectations, I want you to refer to your playbook, and I want you to look at plays 7 through 10 because it will give you a little bit more insight of what all serving teams should be shooting for as you conduct your particular ministry role. All right, so now let me get into event planning. I won't spend a ton of time there because I have a nice handout that's attached to this guide that you're reviewing right now. But the idea, the first step is a good plan. And every plan, we should use a template. The template should have 5 meetings. Number 1 should be a meeting that's about vision, blueprint, goals. That's called the scope. The second meeting should be all about our resources, our budget, our human resources, event resources. What do we need to accomplish the goal? The third meeting is all about us talking to stakeholders. We want to make sure that key people understand how the event will impact their respective ministry, what we need from some of these stakeholders, and more than anything, people just like to know that we considered them in our planning process. And this is something that honestly I learned through trial and error and through experience, and I'm sure you all have done the same. The fourth meeting is all about rehearsal. What we've learned in previous events is that the day before or the day of is not enough time for people to be properly prepared for excellent service. So we're going to be using video and team calls and different strategies to ensure that everyone understands their purpose, their role, and what we expect from them. And then the last meeting, the fifth meeting, is called the closeout. The closeout is where we evaluate our success, our struggles, and growth opportunities. All right. The next area that I want to talk about regarding the event team, your team, general roles and expectations. Every team is structured with a 3-person leadership team, very much like the Godhead, God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. I think there's something powerful in that model. The Bible says that a 3-cord strand cannot be easily broken. The other reality is that many of us are so busy, so much is going on, events can pop up that we can't afford not to have someone taking the lead and getting an event moving. So this 3-fold structure is a captain, a coordinator, and a coach. The captain provides vision and direction. The coordinator is all about management. They take and pull everything together, all the pieces. They take the playbook, they refine the event standard operating play, they manage the timeline and the calendar. They also manage the team template, and they make sure that all the pieces are working according to the plan. The coach is focused on communication and training. Their goal is to ensure that we are developing a top-notch event ministry team. They also want to gather feedback and they provide correction, and they also oversee the spiritual growth of the team. So now I want to talk a little bit about what are the general roles for the event team. Now, before I even get into these roles, I want to make it clear that although the event team is primarily responsible, some of these activities will not be solely assigned to the event team. So here are the general activities that you'll manage. Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, and special events like Good Friday. There are also some Sunday services like the one coming up where we have guest artists, and it's just a lot going on that we may call on the event team to provide some level of oversight. I'd really like to see in 2016 the event team using Sundays as practice and preparatory grounds for when we have our larger events. All right, another team activity is event management, oversight. Another is guest artist management, line service, training event serving team members, post-event evaluation, and communicating to ministry team leaders. All right, let me expound a little bit more on this three-person leadership team, and then I want to talk about what roles each of you will initially be assigned to. The captain, as I said, provides vision, direction, creativity. This team member has the natural ability to turn insights or ideas into blueprints. They're visionary, creative, artistic, and have a natural ability to think outside of the box. And so for captain, I will operate primarily as captain along with the iServe management team. This will enable us to have a great bridge between what comes from Pastor Battle, Pastor Marshall, and at times myself, and allow me to get that to the event team for proper processing. I mean, reality of it is, without that marriage, you all have seen how events can go, where we basically have two sets of instructions, and on the day of the event, it can be quite tense and complicated. So I can't afford not to be in the process at this stage. So again, I, along with the iServe management team, will function in the role of captain. In the role of team coordinator, this team member is good at pulling plans, people, purpose together as one. They can work a jigsaw puzzle. They have the gift of pulling pieces together. They are naturally inclined to conduct, coordinate, connect, and help the team reach their plan. That role will be assigned to Sheila Varner. The role of coach is all about people skills and communication, details. This team member sees problems and processes. They can recognize missing steps, identify right people for the right role. They're natural finishers. They develop talent and have an ability to communicate with others in a way in which is well received. They also add details to a process or to a plan that makes a difference and have a way of communicating it in which everybody can grasp it. So this role will be assigned to Kimberly Moore, and the role of co-captain will be assigned to Kimberly Dawkins. So the way this would work is that I would connect with the iServe management team and develop a rough draft skeleton of what the vision blueprint is, convey that to Kimberly Dawkins. Kimberly Dawkins would then take that to the team to begin to work it out and bring the vision into a reality. All right. So that is the team organizational structure. Now I want to take a moment and talk about team goals. Goal number one, it's real simple. Follow the playbook. It is imperative that we all are on the same page, that we all have the same foundational ingredients. So I want you to not only know the playbook, but I want us to work it. The second goal is build a specialized events team. Every time we build or have an event, we ought to be looking through people who serve, names, numbers, and even through I serve orientation. We want a group of people every time we have an event that we're using the same people. And those people are developing the skill of doing their role with excellence. All right. Third goal is we want to use an event planning template, which you will see a little further down in our orientation. The fourth goal is that we want over 2016, we want to see you add a minimum of 6 team members to your leadership team. Now, while you all will be the primary leaders, there should always be reproduction of leadership. There should always be someone who can step in and cover your role in the event that you all may be working on another event, or an event that you're not present, you're not able to do it. You know, it could be a time where you're not well. Might not be the right season. So we want to make sure that we are reproducing at least 6 additional team members who are being groomed to do what you do. Another goal is we want in 2016, we want the event plan to be completed 1 month prior to the event. The next goal is that we want to see and recognize that a systemic process is being used, that we're using the same vendors, we're building relationships, that basically events start to become plug and play. So it doesn't really matter what creative ideas are thrown at the table. The core elements are already in play and that is running like a fine-tuned machine. And then finally, your last goal is to measure and evaluate every event against predefined goals. All right? Overall, we are expecting you to go about obtaining these goals with timeliness, that is using a calendar, and we're not waiting to the last minute. Thoroughness, that we are always communicating who, what, when, where, how, and why, and taking ownership. That is vital. As team leaders, when things break down, we're looking for the team leaders to assume responsibility for both success and struggles. So that is it for team goals. All right. Want to just talk real quick about the planning table. We've already gone through the 5 meetings that need to take place and what those areas are all about. So you're going to, whenever you work through your event planning template, you want to have your playbook open and you want to have your template alongside it so that you're working both at the same time. So I want to take and spend this time to talk about your roles, the event planning roles. So there's a difference between the role you play in planning the event and the role you play on the day of the event. They're 2 different roles, right? So when it comes to the vision, blueprint, and theme, as I said, myself, I serve management, Kimberly Dawkins, would work to get the general direction and scope for the event. But on the day of the event, we would operate more in the capacity of quality control and overall evaluation. Like Nehemiah, he was able to step back and he was able to recognize what was happening in the big picture while people were working on the gaps. And we want to use a very similar approach. Another part of our planning is artist management. We want to destroy, and that's not a cool word, is it? We want to erase the line between the event team and the artist team. There tends to be 2 teams. So one of the ways we want to do that is make sure we have a point of contact that is gathering pertinent information and making sure that we are on the same page. Kimberly Dawkins and Camilla Goodrich would be the point of contacts for making that happen. They would act as a liaison with Inseekin, who works with the music department, Pastor Marshall, and even myself in some cases, but usually it's going to be Pastor Marshall, to ensure that our guest artists have a name tag, a picture, and that we're able to place both name and picture in reserved seats. And that's the big idea. Even when we may not have guest artists, you're always looking out for our special guests who are the elderly and the disabled. We want to improve the way we serve that community. It can be with something as small as having signage to identify those who are in those categories and getting them seated before events start. You also want to be able to talk with and seek and find out, making sure we're on the same page in terms of when people are entering the sanctuary. So there's not a last minute hold up and can create confusion. All right. So vision, artist management, process management, point of contact, Sheila Varner, Tiffany Graber. Again, this is in the planning process. You all will be chiefly responsible to make sure that templates are being used, that we're following a consistent process, and that we're aligning the process with our projected outcomes. This is where we want to go. Does the plan match the final destination? You also would manage the meetings as well as the conversations. On the day of the event, you would assist with evaluation, but you would specifically be looking at a written plan, which you would have in your hand. You were looking at time. You would also be looking at the process that we mapped out and said this is what we want to execute, and the people. Now, the beauty of this is that we're not looking to become religious in how we work these things, because we understand there has to be some level of flexibility, but we ought to know the plan well enough to ensure that if something changes, we know what changed and why it changed. And isn't it awesome that we have some people who are not working on the wall, but they're standing back and watching it being built to ensure that it's being built according to plan. All right. All right. Vision, artist management, process management, communication, and resource management. This will be the primary point of contact for this role in planning would be Camilla Goodrich, Kimberly Moore. Kimberly Moore would actually act as the primary point of contact in terms of communication on the day of the event. She would be the voice, if you will. This particular team will ensure that we're using worksheets to access resources, that we're looking at budgets and emailing the plan, the game plan to our stakeholders. They would also lead the debriefing and the post-event evaluation. This is crucial because now we're able to have kind of a paper trail. We can go back and look at what we spent and what we did at one event versus the next. We have an archive that we can pull from. On the day of the event, communication, resource management, this team would have a floor rotation to check on team leaders, overall plans, and actively problem solve. This team would be able to see when something breaks down, come up with a quick solution to patch it, and also check on team leaders to find out how are you doing? Are you clear on what you should be doing? How can we help you? That is what this team does on the day of the event. Then this last area in preparation are event coaches. Event coaches would be Mika Woods, Kimberly Moore, Kimberly Brody in terms of preparation. This team ensures that all service team members receive a video orientation via email, and they receive a team call that gives them instructions they need in preparation for the day of the event. They receive a virtual tour, clear roles, position, that they know who their point of contact is, and they understand the expectations for their specific role. The event coaches also will provide an orientation prior to the service, and they would have a floor rotation to ensure that people are clear on their roles. This is what they will do, or this is what Kim Brody, Mika Woods would do on the day of the event. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about specific or special event roles. So we kind of talked about the broad event roles. Now we want to look at special event roles. Um, so one role that we're adding that we hadn't had in the past is a quality control team. Quality control, I serve management. Mika Woods will be the point of contact. Their posts will be wherever they are needed. We would have them placed strategically throughout the building to ensure that we have swift lines, that we are making sure we don't have unnecessary congestion, that the overall experience is a win. This team has the authority to make a change on the floor to improve the experience for our guests. That's the difference maker. In times past, we might have one person being the point of contact. Then there's a relay because you want to obviously work through that person and not just make a move. By the time we get that information back to where the change needs to happen, the experience is already ruined. So we want to have a group of people who are empowered to see a particular situation, make a call, and keep the process going. So that's quality control. Service team director. This is frontline, point of contact. Michonne Hicks. She floats between the sanctuaries, and her sole focus is on making sure greeters, seaters, captains are where they should be. She will have a physical floor plan in her hand with the name and the position of each person that's supposed to be at their particular post. And then she can go by and inspect and make sure they're doing things like smiling, making sure they're engaging people as they come through, and ensuring that there is an orderly process by which we receive our guests. All right. Another role that's unique, line servers. This hit me because you often hear the word line, crowd management, or people waiting in the line. And I was watching a video on Facebook actually, and they were showing people on Black Friday in the UK. They were showing how orderly the people were coming into the store, and they actually had people designated to serve people who were in line. And I said, man, what would happen if we took away the waiting experience by making it part of the entire experience? We want the line to be a party. And so we want a team of people who will be positioned strategically to serve people while they wait. To be, little snacks and cookies, engaging them in conversation. And so here's some basic description. Engage in brief dialogue, energize the audience through games and music, and encourage smiles through uplifting activity. This would be, point of contact will be Kim Brody for this. Traffic and safety, that speaks for itself. We want to make sure that people have safe entry, a swift exit, and a safe sanctuary experience. Kenny Nicholson and Deacon Kenny Battle will be the point of contact. We also have a check-in team. We're going to do all electronic check-in. And the admin team will be chiefly responsible for setting up our check-in stations. And that will be led by none other than our admin team leader, Cincy Curtis. We will also have a hospitality team. The hospitality team, or event hospitality, may be a little different from our Sunday team in that they not only provide refreshments, but they also check on our serving team members to make sure that they're being well taken care of. Then finally, we're adding a team called SET. They serve on Sundays. They're our Sunday enrichment team. But their focus, along with the ministers in training, will be to improve the presence and the quality of the worship experience in our extended sanctuaries. They will provide presence, prayer, and service. All right? So that sums up everything I really wanted to talk to you all about. I'm excited. I hope that this video orientation was clear. If you have any questions, I'll post it where you can post questions. We can have a conversation. If there's something that you just totally lost about, don't hesitate to call. I'm grateful to get this off my plate so y'all can stop worrying me. But you all, I want to say again, you all have been outstanding. I couldn't be more privileged to serve alongside you. I love your heart for service, your humility, your work ethic, and I'm excited because I see the power when we all operate in our strength zones and come together to provide an experience that causes people to see God. So God bless you, thank you, and I look forward to our follow-up conversation.